February 2025. A team of young engineers. Yeah, I don't believe that either. Let's call them what they are. A team of young hackers, some in their 20s, most with no government experience whatsoever. None confirmed by Senate. None properly vetted to handle such information. Walk into the Treasury Department and demand access to their files. These young hackers want access to everything. The payment systems that handle Social Security checks, veterans benefits, tax refunds, the database that contains the Social Security numbers, bank accounts, and personal information of virtually every single American. And they get it. In some cases, not just read access. One employee was given the ability to edit payment data. This is the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, led by, at that time, Elon Musk. Unelected, unconfirmed, unprecedented, still relevant. I'm Sarah, and this is Ethos Trek, and today we're examining what happens when the world's richest man is given access to the government's most sensitive systems. And multiple federal judges say it should never have happened. So what is DOGE? Officially, it's the Department of Government Efficiency. It was created by executive order shortly after President Trump took office in January of 2025. Its stated mission: identify waste, fraud, and inefficiency in federal spending. Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, and the owner of X, the dumpster fire formerly known as Twitter, was named to lead it. He brought in associates from his companies, young, what he called engineers, but they're hackers, with Silicon Valley backgrounds, and a mandate to move fast. DOGE isn't actually a department. It has no statutory authority. It wasn't created by Congress. It exists solely because the president said it exists. What's the problem? Government efficiency sounds good. Who's against efficiency, right? But here's the thing. The Constitution has rules about who gets to exercise governmental power. The Appointments Clause, Article 2, Section 2, requires that principal officers of the United States be nominated by the President and confirmed by the Senate. This isn't a technicality. It's a check on executive power. The Senate's role in vetting who gets to wield authority in the people's name. Elon Musk was never nominated for anything. He was never confirmed by anyone. Yet, he'd been exercising powers that look very much like those of a principal officer. Directing federal employees, making policy decisions, accessing classified and sensitive government systems. Remember last week we talked about federal judge Theodore Twang in The Power of the Purse? While he was reviewing DOGE's role in dismantling USAID, he found that Musk was, quote, wielding power that would require Senate confirmation without being confirmed, unquote, a likely violation of the Appointments Clause. Let's talk about the privacy violations. DOGE sought access to the most sensitive databases in the federal government. These included Treasury payment systems. These systems process payments for Social Security, veterans benefits, tax refunds, and government contracts. They contain bank account numbers, Social Security numbers, and detailed personal information for hundreds of millions of Americans. Social Security Administration systems. These have comprehensive records on every American with a Social Security number. such as work history, benefits, disability status, and more. And IRS data. Thanks to Congress, Musk doesn't have to worry about taxes, but the rest of us do. And as such, tax records are among the most protected information in the federal government. There are specific criminal penalties for unauthorized disclosure. Multiple federal judges have blocked or criticized DOGE's data access. Their language is striking. Judge Jeanette Vargas said, quote, "The process has been rushed, chaotic, and haphazard," unquote. She noted there was a, quote, "real possibility," unquote, that sensitive personal information had already been shared illegally. Judge Deborah Boardman said, quote, "No matter how important the DOGE agenda may be to some, agencies must execute that agenda in accordance with the law. And that likely did not happen here," unquote. Judge Ellen Lipton Hollander said, "The government," quote, "never articulated even a single reason," unquote, "why DOGE needed unlimited access to Social Security records." She called the approach, quote, "hitting a fly with a sledgehammer," unquote. These are the laws that have been violated. I'm sure there are more. But 1, the Privacy Act of 1974. Federal agencies can only share personal information when specifically authorized by law. Bulk access to payment systems and Social Security records is not authorized. 2, Internal Revenue Code. Tax information has heightened protections. Unauthorized access or disclosure is a federal crime. 3, Administrative Procedure Act. Agencies must follow proper procedures. Quote, "rushed, chaotic, and haphazard," unquote, does not qualify. 4, the Appointments Clause. People exercising significant governmental authority must be properly appointed and confirmed. Beyond the legal issues, there are alarming security concerns. Write access, for example. That's write, W-R-I-T-E. Court documents revealed that at least one DOGE employee was given not just the ability to view data, but to edit it. Think about what that means. The power to change where government payments go. Whose bank account receives Social Security checks or tax refunds? There's no evidence this power was misused, but the fact that it was granted at all to someone without proper vetting or confirmation is extraordinary. There were vetting failures. One DOGE employee, 25-year-old Marco Velez, resigned after his history of racist social media posts surfaced. He had been given access to Treasury systems before his background was discovered. But here's the thing. That resignation was for the media's benefit. He was discovered to still be on the government payroll at the end of March, when that news cycle died down. And in July, he was once again given access to sensitive databases. That's why vetting processes exist. This is why Senate confirmation matters. When you bypass the safeguards, you get outcomes like this. Let's talk about the conflict of interest. Elon Musk's companies hold billions of dollars in federal contracts. SpaceX contracts with NASA and the Department of Defense. Tesla has regulatory business with the Department of Transportation. His companies have tax obligations overseen by the IRS. Now Musk and his associates have access to internal systems of the agencies that regulate, contract with, and tax his companies. That's why conflict of interest rules exist. This is why government officials typically divest or recuse. None of that happened here. Let's talk about the constitutional questions. The Appointments Clause. Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution requires that principal officers, people exercising significant federal authority, be nominated by the President and confirmed by the Senate. The founders included this requirement because they didn't want the President to be able to staff the government with cronies without any check. The Senate's advice and consent role is a fundamental safeguard. Elon Musk has been directing federal employees, making policy decisions, and accessing the most sensitive government systems. If that's not exercising significant federal authority, what is? The Take Care Clause. Article 2 requires the President to, quote, take care that the laws be faithfully executed, unquote. The Privacy Act is a law. The Internal Revenue Code is a law. The Administrative Procedure Act is a law. When DOGE accesses data in ways judges have found likely illegal, that's not faithful execution of the laws. That's violation of them. Now, before we move on, I want to address something. I know I'm going to see a few comments that this is old news. DOGE is no longer. The White House recently did announce that DOGE was disbanded, and their duties and personnel had been dispersed to other agencies, and those agencies were now executing DOGE's mission. That was simply an exercise in semantics, in meaning. The translation? Oh, it still exists and is operating. A DOGE by any other name is just as dogy. Besides, even when DOGE is gone from government, they won't really be gone. Here's something few people are addressing. We can't forget Musk and his associates are computer coding specialists. If they write or rewrite the code, which we know they tried, because they screwed up COBOL code in the Social Security Administration system, which caused catastrophic failures in the system, and people who were in the system were taken off, and retirees are still trying to sort out DOGE's incompetence. Geek out warning, and I apologize. COBOL, for those who don't know, stands for Common Business Oriented Language. It was created in 1959 and is still vital for maintaining legacy systems like banks and government databases with massive amounts of information. Unlike modern coding methods like Python, Java, JavaScript, or C# that the DOGE's pubescent hackers likely learned. COBOL is known for its portability and English-like syntax, which means you can't simply add modern code to COBOL and hope for the best. It causes catastrophic failures, like we saw with the Social Security Administration system. So they had to rewrite and fix the system. If they rewrite or write the code, their access is infinite. The damage is done. Musk and his hackers will always have access to our information if we can't get in there and fix it. I'm a social scientist. How do I know this? Because effing up code, modern or otherwise, is my specialty. Time for some critical thinking questions? 1. What's the difference between a government employee and someone who just has government access? DOGE personnel exercise power but aren't subject to normal government ethics rules, confirmation requirements, or accountability structures. Is that a feature or a bug? 2. If a billionaire with massive government contracts has access to the systems that regulate and pay his companies, what could possibly go wrong? We don't have evidence of misuse, but we have a structure that makes misuse trivially easy. Is that acceptable? 3. What happens to your data once it's accessed? Judge Vargas noted a, quote, real possibility, unquote, that information was already shared illegally. Can you unshare data? Can you restore privacy once it's breached? 4. Does moving fast justify breaking things, including the law? Silicon Valley culture celebrates speed. Government exists to protect rights, which requires due process. Can those cultures coexist? Should they? Why does Senate confirmation matter? The confirmation process is imperfect, slow, often partisan, but it's public, it's accountable, it's democratic. What's lost when we bypass it? So what can you do? Well, 1, you can support privacy rights organizations, groups like Electronic Frontier Foundation, EFF, and the Electronic Privacy Information Center, EPIC, are fighting these battles. They need support. 2, contact your senators. The Senate has confirmation power. They can demand that anyone exercising significant federal authority go through the confirmation process. Ask them, what are you doing about unconfirmed officials exercising governmental power? 3, know your rights. The Privacy Act gives you the right to request your records from federal agencies. You can ask what information they have about you and who has accessed it. 4, follow the litigation. Multiple cases challenging DOGE access are working through the courts. Know what happens next. Think about precedent. If this president can give an unelected billionaire access to your data, so can the next president. What billionaire might they choose? What data might they access? Here's what we know. An unelected billionaire and his associates have been given access to federal systems containing the personal information of virtually every American. Multiple federal judges have found this access likely violated the Privacy Act, the Administrative Procedure Act, and potentially the Constitution itself. The process was, in one judge's words, quote, rushed, chaotic, and haphazard, unquote. At least one person with right access to payment systems resigned, sorta, after their racist social media posts surfaced. Posts that proper vetting would have discovered. But don't worry, he still has his job. The founders required Senate confirmation for significant officers because they understood the dangers of unchecked power. They understood that accountability requires process. They understood that democracy requires consent. When we abandon those principles for speed, for efficiency, for the convenience of those in power, we don't become more efficient. We become less free. In episode 5, we'll examine what happens when the government targets lawyers for representing disfavored clients. Law firms stripped of security clearances. Executive orders ruled unconstitutional by judges across the political spectrum. And what it means when defending unpopular clients becomes a punishable offense. Targeting the defenders is next. I'm Sarah. This is Ethos Trek. Stay informed, stay engaged, stay constitutional. Thank you for listening. If you like this content, please poke that like button. Consider subscribing. Subscribing is totally free. Doesn't cost you a thing. It helps Ethos Trek grow as a channel and helps the algorithm decide who sees this content.